Hello and welcome to another episode of On the Couch MMA. I'm your host Jonathan. Alongside me as always is Tremaine Carter.
What's up?
How's everybody doing? We got a jam-full packed episode for you tonight. We're going to talk a little bit about the UFC card on Sunday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time in Amsterdam. Arlovski versus Overeem. We're also going to talk a little bit about the recent MMA news and what's been going on. So Tremaine, let's go ahead and open it up, man, with one of the big news. Is I think this week was a couple months ago. It was actually probably about a month ago. Kimbo Slice fought Dada 5000. Looked pretty impressive, you know, TKO. Comeback to, after the post-fight. Now the reports come out that Kimbo has actually failed his drug test, steroids, and as a matter of fact, yesterday he actually agreed to the penalties that the Texas Athletic Commission sent down to him. He's going to be fined. I think it was $5,200, and I guess they're giving him back his license, or his fight license. So I mean, this is a big deal for Bellator. I think, you know, they brought Kimbo in to be, I guess, the face figure after, you know, he left Elite XC. You know, he had his tryout in UFC, didn't really do very well. Of course, we all know he got knocked out by Roy Wilson on the Ultimate Fighter finale. I think this is a real big blow to Kimbo as far as, you know, Dada 5000 to begin with was a big guy, and here's Kimbo, and now we're finding out he's failed the drug test. I mean, what's your thoughts on that? I mean, how big of a blow would you think this would be to Bellator, as much as I think it's a pretty big blow to them?
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, that fight against Dada, to me, neither one of them looked impressive.
Right.
And for him to be taking steroids, you know, which is supposed to enhance your performance.
Right.
For him to be taking steroids and to look the way he did,
right,
was kind of shocking to me.
Right.
He was constantly out of breath. In my opinion, just didn't look good at all. I mean, I think it's definitely a blow to Bellator.
Right.
You know, with them trying to make a come up, you know,
right,
of course, you know, they want to be on the same level as UFC, but when you got a fight like that was, in my opinion, pitiful.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then to come out and, you know, him be, you know, tested positive for steroids, it's kind of puts a step back for Bellator.
I mean, we look at the UFC and see what, you know, how aggressive they are with the testing of their fighters. And you know,
I thought they tested before fights.
They do test before fights. The report was the post-fight he tested positive for steroids. So it's kind of hard to believe they didn't catch it before the fight.
Yeah.
But it was a post-fight. It was a couple of days after his post-fight, or it was either that night. He actually tested pop for steroids. So, and you know, going back to what I was saying with the UFC is aggressive as they are with trying to stop the steroids, you know, and the TRT and all these, I guess, unfair advantages fighters can get when they take these things that just make you pretty much invincible when you take them, if you think about it. I mean, but the TRT thing, you know, they banned that because, you know, a fighter would take it just to get level, an older fighter, just to get level with the younger guys, and then he realized what it did, and now it raised him, you know, far and far beyond above what it would do, and just put him on a different level than everybody else.
And that's what I mean, like with him being tested for steroids and going off the way he looked in that fight, you would not think he was on steroids.
Right,
like
exactly.
I said, he was constantly out of breath. He looked weak. I don't know. I just think if it was a more advanced fighter than Dada, that other fighter would have knocked Kimbo out the first round, in my opinion. Just because of the way he looked, just out of breath, and his conditioning wasn't good at all. But steroids is supposed to fix all that. You know what I mean?
Right. And you know, for Bellator's sake, they need to wrap this up. I mean, Scott Coker needs to take a little book out of Dana's there, you know, a little thing out of Dana's and try to get this all cleaned up. Because I mean, to me, it's a pretty big shot in the arm for them. You know, especially when one of their, I guess you can say, prize fighters, it just got popped for steroids. You know, and you look at the UFC where a lot of times, and we're going to see what's going to happen from Bellator? Are they going to suspend Kimbo Slice? The fight has been turned to a no contest. So now, it's going to be interesting coming forward what's going to happen.
Yeah.
So let's move on and talk a little bit about Conor McGregor. He continues to send out tweets about being on UFC 200 and how, the UFC just needs to give him Nate Diaz. In my mind, it's getting to a point to me as much. Everybody knows me. I don't really like Conor McGregor to begin with, as far as the way he acts outside the octagon, the way he acts in the octagon. He's a hell of a fighter. He does what he does. My time now is come and said that it's enough is enough. You're not on the UFC 200 card no more. You had your chance to get Nate Diaz, and there's talks that he's going to get him after UFC 200. But now he's kind of almost blaming the UFC for being pulled off the card. But in all reality, it's your fault for not showing up at your press conference to put on the fight that was originally scheduled on here. What is your take? Are you tired of hearing all this stuff now with Conor, and he continues to continue to blast everybody in the media and things like that about it?
Yeah, it's just like I said last week's episode. If your boss is calling you and telling you that you need to be somewhere, and you're the face of that sport, UFC, whatever, then you need to go.
Right.
You need to go. Don't make a fuss about it. They're the one that's paying you all this money.
Right.
You got to promote yourself.
Yeah, for sure.
And you talk about money. Well, the more you promote yourself, the more money you can possibly make.
Right.
Yeah, I just think it's starting to get out of control.
Yeah.
Conor just needs to do what he's supposed to do.
Yeah. You got to look at it from the UFC's perspective. They got to do what's right, no matter how big of a star you are. You look at John Jones. They stripped the title from him. Wanderlei Silva got suspended from the US, or basically not really banned, but indefinite suspension from the UFC for testing positive for steroids and things like that as well.
Yeah.
So it comes to a point.
It's a business.
Yeah, and if you're worried about the fight, look how big of much money you could have made in this fight. It might not have been, you might not be about money, but you're talking. I'm projecting $10 million per fighter in this fight potentially.
Yeah.
With this UFC 200 being as big as it's going to be, it's the 200th pay-per-view in the 20-year history of the UFC. How big this card is going to be.
It's going to be a big event.
And how much money these two could have actually made. And of course, we know Nate Diaz is, taking his vacation and not worrying about Conor. But I just think it comes to a point when enough is enough, and quit complaining, just get back to working out. And the next time Dana comes calling you to do a promotion, get your butt out there and do the promotion. Yeah. Promote your fight. That's how you got to get fans, into your fight and want to actually watch that pay-per-view.
Yep. And so, like I said, it's at the end of the day, it's a business. Dana's going to do what he needs to do, to keep the business going or whatever. Right. And if that means that he needs to take Conor off of it, then that's what he needs to do.
Right.
It's kind of like, I'm going to put my foot down. This is the way it's going to be. You're not going to take advantage of what we have going on, or not do because you simply just don't want to do it.
Right.
So.
And, let's move into that with our next topic. Dana White getting a lot of criticism for pulling Conor McGregor from this card and not giving him his opportunity after he said he would show up. In my mind, I look at it like this. I kind of praise Dana for doing it, because the one thing you don't want to do is you don't want to... of course, every promoter is going to have their favorite fighter. But you don't want to play favoritism to all the other guys that showed up, that showed up to the actual press conference to promote their fight. And you got this guy Conor who just thinks he's one and only person that don't have to show up to promote his fights. And Dana's getting all this criticism, which I think is not fair to him, because he is the promoter and because he is the face of the company. He's getting it, but I believe he did the right thing by pulling Conor off his card and sending him a message. You've got to come and promote your fights no matter what. And as many people want to see this fight, we're just going to have to wait. But it sends a message to everybody, not just Conor McGregor, that the UFC is serious about you have to come and promote your fights. Mm-hmm. If you don't show up, don't care who you are, you're going to get pulled from that card, especially as big as this card is going to be. You know, and I agree with you, Tremaine. You were talking about how, you know, any boss in any company and even in the big sports, you know, you've got to do what's right for your business. You're the boss. But it also just, like I said, reflects to the employees that you're not taking any crap, that you got to promote your fight. Dana's put all this money into the fight. You got to do this fight.
Yeah.
You've got to promote it, to sell it, to get the fans to watch it, for them to pay the $50, you know, us to pay the $59 or whatever it is, the $49 to watch the fight. So
Yep.
it is what it is, and I just think Dana shouldn't be getting all the criticism, and I think we should, you know, really think about what Dana's doing. He's actually just stepping up and just telling the guys, you've got to promote your fight. Have to.
Yep.
Let's move on into the card. It's Arlovski versus Overeem. This is a quite interesting fight, needless to say. There's some good fights on there, you know. But I want to talk about the main card. The rest of the fights, they look to be that they're going to be pretty interesting. You know, you got Carolina Kowalczyk versus Heather Jo Clark, Nikita Krylov versus Francimar Barrosa. You got Jermaine Dayradami versus Anna Elmos. You've got Albert Tumanov versus Gunnar Nelson. And then, of course, you've got your main event, the Antonio Silva versus Stefan Struve. You know, we look at Antonio Silva in his last fight against Mark Hunt, which was pretty quick. You know, he got knocked out. Mark Hunt, we all know, is a big old heavyweight, punches hard. But, you know, Antonio Silva, he's coming off that knockout, and he's fighting Stefan Struve, who's, you know, he's got a good chin on him, you know, and Stefan's coming off a unanimous decision loss. But this is a real interesting fight in many ways. You know, if Antonio Silva wants to get back in the heavyweight discussion, he's gonna have to beat Stefan Struve, and in my mind, he's gonna have to do it pretty impressively. You know, with where Stefan Struve, you know, if he wants to make his mark and make his run in the heavyweight division, this is a big fight for him.
Yeah.
You want to be known as the best in the world. Go out there and handle your business against Antonio Silva, and you know, this is a big fight for both of them. I think in my mind, more or less, it's big for Antonio Bigfoot Silva.
I agree.
You know, coming from where he's coming from and taking the knockout to Mark Hunt. You know, this is a big fight for him if he wants to get back in that title discussion. You know, of course, I believe he's the number 12 heavyweight in the world. You know, if he can beat Stefan Struve, rack off a couple more wins after that, you know, it'll be big for him. I mean, what's your take on the fight, and, you know, what do you think's going to happen?
Honestly, I think Silva's going to bounce back and possibly knock him out.
Yeah.
That's just how I feel about it. But at the same time, for Struve, if he beats Silva, it's gonna be huge for him too.
Yeah, for sure.
But I definitely see Silva bouncing back and beating him.
Right.
I don't know what he's gonna do as far as climbing back up.
Right.
Because he's getting up there in age.
Yeah, he's getting up there. I mean, you got to look at the heavyweight division. It's pretty stacked too. I mean, you look at all the guys, like, you know, you got Junior Dos Santos, you got Cain Velasquez, you got Travis Brown. I mean, these are the top heavyweights in the world, and you're coming off a loss to Mark Hunt, and you know you've got to make that climb back. I mean, you're getting into the age where, you know, most of the fighters start to decline at this point.
It's hard to bounce back.
Exactly.
But like I said, I think he'll bounce back and he'll beat Struve, and possibly work his way back up.
Yeah, it's a pretty, you know,
he's a good fighter.
He's a good fighter, and he's got this is a statement fight for him.
Yeah.
I mean, if he really wants to make a statement and show everybody that he's still the legitimate top heavyweight in the world, one of the top heavyweights in the world. You know, you've got to go out and put on a statement against Stefan Struve, who we all know is a very good fighter, can take a beating. He has before.
Yeah.
It'll be very interesting to see. So, let's make our pick. Who you got?
In the fight we just talked about?
Yeah, who you got?
Bigfoot.
You know, I'm gonna jump out on the limb here, and I'm gonna take Stefan Struve. I just have a feeling that, you know, I think Stefan, you know, with the last loss he took to Jake, I think it was Jared Rothschild. He got beat, but I think Stefan wants to make a statement, and I think he wants to make a big statement. he doesn't have that many big wins. And I think this is the opportunity. This is the time that Stefan Struve goes in there, takes care of Bigfoot Silva, gets a victory. I'm not going to say it's going to be a knockout. I think it's going to be, I'm going to say a split decision, but I think Stefan Struve goes in there and gets the job done and puts himself in the one of the top contenders. And I think he'll jump Bigfoot Silva of that 12 ranking and get in there for the top.
I think Bigfoot's going to knock him out.
Well, we'll see what happens. It's going to be interesting, So everybody said 2:00 on Fox Sports 1. It's in Amsterdam. Overeem's, is basically his stomping ground. Let's talk a little bit about Alistair Overeem versus Andre Arlovski. This is going to be another big fight, and this is actually a fight I've been waiting for. Andre Arlovski, he's what we call a veteran of the sport. He is a veteran, but he's been around so many places. And he comes back to the octagon, and he had, I think it was a 3-fight win streak. Looked very impressive, and then he has that tough loss. I think it was his last fight he had. It was a tough loss. And then you look at Alistair Overeem. High expectations when he came to the UFC. He beat Brock Lesnar when Brock was supposed to be, trying to get back into that championship discussion. This is going to be an interesting fight, and I think for Arlovski to be able to win this fight, he's going to have to somehow find a way to get Alistair Overeem to the ground. It's a tough task, but I think standing up with Alistair is going to be Arlovski's big mistake. And I think for Arlovski to get that confidence, he needs to get him down, he needs to work that ground game, and he needs to really take advantage of where I think Alistair's weakest part is, and it's on the ground. We haven't seen Alistair much on the ground in the UFC, but I think for Arlovski to actually win this fight, he's got to get it to the ground. How do you see this fight going? And go ahead and throw in your pick once.
I agree with you. Standing up, I think Overeem has the advantage with his striking and he's really good in kickboxing, right?
Yes, very good in kickboxing.
Wasn't he like a champion?
He was a champion, I believe, in kickboxing. Yes.
So I think standing up, Overeem has the clear advantage. Yeah. Even with his, I even think he's much stronger.
Oh, for sure, for sure.
But like you said, if they get to the ground, then I think Arlovski has much better chance. Of defeating him. I haven't seen too much of Overeem's ground game.
Yeah, and that's the thing that questions a lot of fight fans is if somebody could get out Overeem to the ground, what could actually happen? I really didn't start following Overeem until he came into the UFC.
Yeah.
I knew he did a lot in I believe it was Pride and Showtime, or not Showtime, but Strike Force. But I think for him to get to the ground, and let's see what he's got. Let's see if Overeem's got the ground game that he needs to. I believe Overeem is kind of underachieved in the UFC. Now, that doesn't mean that the rest of the guys in the heavyweight division aren't powerful and tough. But for a guy that had so much expectations coming into the UFC, and he hasn't really fought for that title yet. He hasn't fought for that championship belt. And that's what all fighters, they aspire to be a champion. And I kind of think he's kind of underachieved that right now, and he's not quite exceeded expectations coming into the UFC.
Yeah, I agree with you. I just feel like Overeem is the better fighter.
Yeah,
that's who I'm going to pick. Even if they try to get Overeem to the ground, I just think he's just too strong.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah, so who you got?
Overeem.
Yeah, and I think Overeem gets the job done. I think it's gonna be a tough fight for Arlovski, and I don't think he's gonna have the opportunity to take Overeem down, and I don't think he's going to be able to get him to the ground. Overeem's just a strong guy. So
not taking anything away from Arlovski.
Yeah.
Good fighter, great fighter.
For sure.
But I just think Overeem has the advantage. Of course, the fight starts standing up.
Yeah.
So that's his advantage.
Right. And I just think for the heavyweight division, it's for me, it's kind of a must to see Overeem get up there with. Because he's got a lot of fans. It's in Amsterdam. It's in his hometown. The crowd will be pumped. It'll be a pretty good fight. Yeah, it'll be a really good fight, and we'll see what happens. Well, anyway, guys, we're kind of to the end of the show. There wasn't much to talk about this week. We're kind of waiting for next week's episode when we talk a little bit about the pay-per-view that's going to be happening. I think it's UFC 198. Just to give you guys all a heads up, we do have our social media sites. You can catch us on Twitter at OnTheCouchMMA. If you have any, questions or, anything like that, you can email us. It's OnTheCouchMMA@gmail.com. If you got a question for either one of us, just put who the question's for in the email. You can also send your questions through Twitter. We also, if you guys check out YouTube, like, subscribe our channel. We're gonna be we have a website we're building up for t-shirts and things like that. Hopefully real soon you'll be seeing us wear our t-shirts. We're gonna try to get those taken care of and try to get a logo up on there. We've been missing it, but you guys keep being strong and do what you do, and just throw in those questions and like, subscribe, check out our videos. We're gonna be on here, like I said, every Wednesday. But anyways, that's really all we got for you tonight. We're gonna have a pretty good episode next week as well. But anyways, until next week, train hard and fight hard. Peace.
Peace.